So in this video today, I am going to try to rank, although it's not really a ranking, although the last thing I'm going to mention on here is number one for me. But we're just going to do my top 5 favorite books that I've read, and these are just fictional books. Like, if it's a fiction, this is not nonfiction and all that stuff. Although I do like, to read about history and stuff like that, like my favorite bands and things. Anyway, so let's get to it. The first book I'm going to mention on this list, I had a copy of it years and years ago. I don't anymore, but when I was a kid, between the ages of like 10 to 13, this was my favorite book that I had read, because there was another one that came that I read not long after that overtook it, and it's actually down further on the list, and I'm only doing that because I don't have a copy of it, and it's not really, like I said, a ranking, because I haven't really put that much thought into ranking them, but yeah, Invisible Man, H.G. Wells, classic book about a scientist who discovers formula for invisibility, and if I can remember, like, all of his papers and stuff are lost, and he's trying to figure out how to reverse this. Again, it's been a long time since I've read this book, but there's not really other fictional books in this list that I've read as much as that and one other that I could really think of being a favorite. I could have just done 4 favorites, but whatever. Now the next book is a fantasy book that I was read to in 5th grade, I think it was, and I loved it, and I had to get a copy of it one day, and I did, and watched the movie that came out that was based on this. I actually went to the theaters and saw the movie, but another classical book I do have a copy of: The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. You have the Pevensey children going to live with the professor during the Battle of Britain, so that way they would be safe. They go into discover a wardrobe, and they go in and have all these adventures, and obviously there's a witch, a lion, obviously. I mean, the title says it all. But yeah, just a classic book. I love this book. I've read it quite a few times. I've only read like 2 other books in this series, so that's something I need to really do, and try to read some more book series so that I can do like a list of like favorite book series, because as of right now there's really only one series. But then if I lump fiction and nonfiction together, I guess I can do it, but whatever. Next one was mentioned to me by my father years and years and years ago, that I should read after I read another book, which is coming up. This is by an author named Pierce Anthony. It's A Spell for Chameleon. I have done a review video of this book. I highly recommend this, as I will with all of these. But yeah, it's about, everyone in this world has a magic ability. Well, the main character doesn't have one, and he wants to discover what his is. And yeah, it's a thrilling adventure, I would say. I mean, it's fantasy, and if you love fantasy, you're gonna love this. You're gonna love Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. It's just a great, fun adventure story. Now, the next 2 books are by my 2 favorite authors. The one authors really I've read a lot of. One more than the other, of course. But when I first read this book, my aunt gave this copy to me. I found it at a yard sale, I believe it was, years ago when I came back to Ohio. I love Stephen King. I just finished reading The Stand, which, again, I got a review of on here. But of all the books that I've read by him, this one to me stands out the most. I think it's his best one. I saw both versions of the movie, one when I was a kid, and of course I have a copy of that one now, and then the remake that was done. One was a TV movie, the second one was actually in the theaters, adapted into 2 parts. Can you guess which this is? It. I mean, you don't get better than this, right? From the master of horror, all these kids in this town are coming up missing, and parents don't see this clown figure that they keep seeing, and they keep seeing all these other things that he can transform into to scare the kids, whatever their fears are, which, the kids' portion takes place in the 1950s, so their fears are, what you see in the Universal horror movies that came out back in those days, like Frankenstein, the Wolf Man, the Mummy, all that. The parents can't see any of this, like I said, and a group of kids defeat Pennywise, the evil clown, and of course they have to come back later as adults because they didn't finish the job, and so now they're back to finish what they started. This book is thrilling. It is scary. It's creepy. And Stephen King's books, there's other great ones too that I can mention, like Pet Sematary, Salem's Lot, The Green Mile, The Shining, which is my second favorite Stephen King book. I had read that one years before I read this one, but that is, yes, it's just, but this, yeah, what else can I say about it? And of course, my most favorite book of all time. What else can be said about this? Everybody knows it. You've seen the movies. I can quote them, and I can quote the book as well, but we're talking about The Lord of the Rings. I remember, as a kid, my dad had these books, and I remember the cover art of the books, and I was always intrigued by it. Never really read it. And then time passed, and I kind of forgot about it. And I saw the animated movie from 1978, which my dad bought a copy of. I saw bits and pieces of it when he bought it on VHS. And then when we moved to Colorado when I was 13, I decided to go ahead and just watch the whole thing. And my mom's like, "You should really read The Hobbit." And I'm like, "Well, what's that?" And I got it for Christmas. I read that. I love that book. And then I began reading this. Originally published in 3 volumes. This is, of course, the volume edition. And I originally had the 3 volumes, and I still have my second and third copies, for the most part, of those books. The first original copies I had are long gone. Actually, my second copy of The Hobbit and the Fellowship's gone, too. So I only have, like, the Two Towers Return of the King, and then I have a full other set. But... well, maybe these are my third and fourth, though, actually. I don't know, I've bought it so many times, I've read it so many times, I've wore the paperbacks out. That's why I had to get this large hardcover, because, yeah. It is one story, and it has to be read that way, I think. When I watch the movies, I have to watch all 3 movies. Just the way it is. But yeah, I would say that those are my top 5 favorites. And as I mentioned, some Stephen King books that I also like. And some of the Chronicles of Narnia that I've read. God, there's just so many. I used to like Moby Dick, and then I tried to do an audiobook of it here recently, and I'm like, okay, this is not what I remember, and this is, I don't know, it's not as good as I thought it was. Another one that was really good, Kidnapped by Robert Louis Stevenson. Dracula is a pretty good book. And then so many biographies and books on history and all kinds of other stuff. I got my Bibles. I got so much that I like to read, and I just want to come on here and share all of that with you, and hopefully you all share yours with me. Yeah, so what are your top 5 favorite books? Top 3? Maybe you don't have a list like that. I mean, I barely do. But anyway, let me know. So, that'll be all for today. I will catch you all later.